Hello, Education 1030 students. I hope everyone had a great week last week. I really hope that you had a great Easter. So this week we're going to be looking at Unit 3. So we just finished out Unit 2 and you completed your capstone and took your second exam. So this last unit that we're working on, we're going to start looking at information literacy and what that is and what that means specifically related to college courses. So whenever we're thinking about studying and looking at information and doing research, we have to look at how do we collect the information and sources we need, how do we evaluate sources, and what are we doing with it once we have it. So chapter 9 really looks at information literacy and really looks at how do we use library to help us with both our writing and our speaking in the courses. So there is going to actually be a second quiz. This is a bonus quiz that is in our course for chapter 9. So you'll see if you scroll down to assignments, you're going to have your regular chapter assignment and your chapter 9 quiz, but there is something called a library module quiz. You can earn bonus points on this quiz. I do encourage students to take it. And we'll talk about that just in a minute, but I wanted to put that on the forefront. So, when we're looking at what it means for information literacy, a good thing obviously is, of course, you're going to read chapter 9 in your textbook and you're going to complete the reading organizer, which, that's like your notes. It helps you as a study tool. It helps you also when you take the last exam. I also, for giving you things to help you. There are some great PowerPoint slides that go along with the text perfectly, as well as a couple videos that lets you have a deeper connection with what we mean by information literacy. The first one is called What is Information Literacy? Remember, these videos are really short, but if you're a visual person, it really helps you be able to connect deeper instead of just reading the text. I also wanted to point out some things in the slides for chapter 9 when we're talking about information literacy. So, obviously, literacy, we're talking about how do we gather sources, right? A lot of times we're doing things for research or for our courses. So, really, information literacy is the ability for you to find things that you need on a certain topic. You interpret the information and pull out the parts that you need, um, and also, it helps you be able to take what you found and use it in your courses. There's different kinds of literacy, right? We have computer literacy, we have media literacy, and cultural literacy. So there are three different types when we're talking about information literacy. So computer literacy really is using electronic tools, right? So this is going to help you like laptops, computers, even your phone, your smartphone. You're going to conduct searches. And when you find the sources that you need, you're going to communicate that in your projects or assignments in your classes. You also have to look at media literacy. Now, this is where you have lots of things that you're looking at or listening to, things that you read. So, when we're talking about media literacy, we're talking about all different types of ways that you can get the content, right? Because this could be news, magazines, articles, TV, videos, lots of different ways that you're going to get that information, but it also lets you really think deeply about what you found. And if you're using it as source, what did you take away from it? So you're really analyzing that information you find. Then we're looking at cultural literacy. So this is really knowing about what's going on, not only in your little world around you, but thinking about globally, right? So what is happening right now? So, one of the important things to note too is when we're talking about information literacy, we're talking about how good are you are finding information, right? Are you good at asking questions? Good questions. Are you able to use the database that the library has? That's the first thing that you look at. That's going to help you gain those information literacy skills that you need. Because remember, these skills can carry over into your career. Some careers, you will have to be able to find information and sources and do research. Then, once you found the information, you have to think about what can I take away from it, right? So what does this all mean? And is this a reliable source, right? So you have to evaluate the information you find and interpret it in a way where you can use it. And then you have to think about, why am I collecting this information? Like, what's the purpose? Who's my audience? And then what am I going to do with it once I have it? So, what do you want to accomplish from your research? So, research really is something that you're going to do in college. And, like I mentioned, some people may even do it for their careers. But research really is where you're going to collect and analyze information, right? So, there's a process of what you do when you're researching. You obviously first have to choose your topic. Then you're going to search for all of those different types of sources. The thing about when you choose a topic, you really have to narrow it down. So that is going to help you when you are in the middle of your search process. Now, as we mentioned, once you find it, you really have to learn how to evaluate what you found, analyze it, and interpret it. Then, once you've done that, you're going to be selective into what you choose because obviously you can't put everything in your research or your findings that you have. So, you have to pick and select the pieces that you wish to keep and discard the rest. And then you're going to either write your paper or prepare your presentation. And now remember, whenever you're doing research, it's really important for you to be able to cite your sources. You have to give credit where credit is due. If it's something that you did not create or your own work, you always have to cite it. This would include not only written pieces, books, textbook articles, journals. It will also include videos, artwork, any visual, really, any media. You always have to cite it. So those were the things I really wanted to really pick out of. Chapter 9 has a lot of information, and some of this is going to be overlay in your library module. But one of the things to note is that Chapter 9 really dives deep into, not only kind of narrowing down your topic, how do you use the library? It's really going to help you become more familiar with using databases, evaluating sources. How do you do that? What do you look at? What common research sources are there? Well, obviously, you have newspapers, magazines, articles, books, videos. There's lots of different ways for you to gather information. And then it goes really into depth talking about how do you actually evaluate it, considering different things such as who wrote it, or do they have authority? Was it someone who's qualified to speak about this? Thinking about relevance, you think about, is it current? Maybe you're doing research for something way back when, then you don't need current. So there's lots of questions you have to ask, things to consider if the information's useful, as if it's relevant, someone that you can trust. And then you have to think about how you're going to display this information once you pick and choose what you have. Okay. So, also something to note in the library module, it talks a little bit about citing your sources there. And I'm going to show you in a minute where you can go into the library homepage. But there's a wonderful thing about using, uh, it's kind of a web page tool or a handbook, if you will, that gives you um, step-by-step process of how to cite. It gives you examples because remember, when you cite sources, there's a format you use, and depending on your discipline, you may use a different type. So for education or psychology, usually any of the social sciences, you're going to use APA, but in English communications, they may have you do MLA. There's also Chicago. So there's different kinds of formats you're going to use when you're citing it. So, but I will show you where you're going to look at that on the library homepage. So in the PowerPoint and in your text both, it talks about the writing process of how you're going to go through your process to make sure your paper and all your findings is on there in the correct way. But also, it's going to be looking at how do you put your research into presentations, which is also important. So, looking also at your homework before we jump into the library module quiz and then the library homepage, it's really going to be looking at what we call a case study. So case study is, it uses a pseudonym, so it is based off of a real person and something that happened, but it's not like the names have been changed. So For this case study, it's about a college student who is in a course like you, a college success course, and she is assigned to do a PowerPoint presentation. So she has to do a research project. And the PowerPoint presentation has to be 10 minutes. So this is kind of about what happens to Jane, and there's some discussion questions that follow. Now, remember, whenever you're doing case studies, you obviously have to look at what's going on with the person, right? We're trying to look at what happened, the pros, the cons, what's going on with her, what's the situation, if there's a problem, and how we would solve it. The discussion questions really are going to lead you into the books because when you're doing the case study, you really have to use text based or research based responses to be able to complete the case study discussion. So there's discussion questions here that I have created for you. Now, you do not have to put this inside of the discussion board. This is something that you're going to submit to Dropbox. There's also no need for you to complete a different Word page. You can download this Word document and type your questions in here. Now, whenever you're using your textbook, it's going to help you be able to answer these questions. But obviously, you still have to use the case study to gather the information about what's going on with Jane. Whenever we're doing discussion questions, I really would like you to do at least 2 to 3 sentences for your answers because if you'll look here, the questions are multi-part, right? Because it's wanting you to elaborate and explain why. So if you're explaining why when you're answering, it should be at minimum 3 sentences, really up to four. And remember, you're going to find a lot of this information that's relevant um, in answering these questions in your textbook. So that's why I say I want you to provide textbook based responses. Now, there's no need for you to cite the textbook. Um, on this one because even though you're gathering information from there, you're using it to do this assignment. So there's no need for you to cite that book for me. But if you were doing it for another class, one of your professors may ask you to cite it, but you don't have to for this specific assignment. So again, you have all these organizers to help you organize your information. You have the PowerPoint slides. I give you some videos to kind of help you gain a deeper understanding. You also are going to have that library tour, that module quiz. This is a bonus point quiz. You still have to take the Chapter 9 quiz, but I'm letting you decide if you would want to earn some extra bonus points through the library tour and module quiz. I'd encourage you to do it because you don't lose points for it. It's not averaged into the grade except for it gives you bonus points. So if you'll click on it, this is what it's going to take you to. There's a link. You do have to click that to get into the module. Also, there is a link to get you to the quiz. Okay, so if you click the first link here, you will see the library module quiz. Now, this was really nice because this was made by our librarian, Crystal Johnson, our research coach. And to navigate this module, what you first do is look at these guiding questions, right? So these guiding questions are going to help you kind of give an idea of what this is going to be about. And you should be able to answer these once you're finished through the module. So, how you navigate through the module is by clicking at the tabs at the top, right? So, it talks about the different kinds of library services that they offer. It talks about some common questions and answers that students have considering when you use the library, research the kinds of spaces they have. Then you have your research basics, right? So some of these things you're going to see and overlap in from our actual textbook and slides, but also you're going to see here again, it talks about citing your sources. This is something that you must do if you are going to be doing any types of research or using sources in any of your assignments. Then it gives you a basic introduction into what we call the database, which I'm going to show you how to get there in just a minute. Okay, so she talks about some how do you start using Google as a source to get you started. How do you look for reliable sources on Google, such as government websites? So this is very helpful to also talk some more about the types of databases you're going to see in the library database. And then it talks about how do you save your work using OneDrive, right? So this is like the cloud-based uh, platform that's free for you as a Water State student. You can save your work. Okay, so remember, once you get through that, you will click on the second link and it's going to take you to the library module quiz. Okay, remember, the quiz, mine looks a little different because I'm not you, but it'll say begin quiz and you should be able to take it. Um, One thing I did want to note is because this wasn't visible yesterday, something was going on, it wasn't open. I did give you extra time. So instead of the summit being due on Thursday, I've extended it to April 7th. So that's on a Sunday instead of Thursday. So you have a few extra days to be able to work on the case study assignment as well as the two quizzes. So let me go ahead and show you now what it looks like if you want to go into the library database. So once you finish the library module, I kind of encourage you to go and look and see what it looks like. So how you get there is if you get on the main homepage of Water State, underneath the tab at the top where it says resources, if you hover over it, you're going to get a drop down menu. If you select library, it's going to take you to the library homepage. So this is what it looks like. Okay. So what you'll have to do is scroll down just a little bit until you see where it says database index, and you're going to click on it. Now, this is kind of going to look familiar if you go through the library module because this is some of the things that she talked about in the module or put there for you. So, there is a video I'm going to try to get to you for you to look at. But one of the things that I did want to notice is that it can be a little overwhelming. You can search through databases based on what kind of subject you're in, like education students. Maybe you're in humanities, maybe law, music. So that's a good place always to start. Also, to think about too is that there's some databases that are a little bit easier. So remember, this is all different types of sources, right? So this is a way for you to get sources all in one place. But there are some search engines that are a little bit easier and have more information. So, for instance, Academic Search Premier is a very good one. Another good one, let me find it. EBSCO is a good one as well. They have a Eric, so Eric might be one that you guys are familiar with. So there's lots of different ones. The easiest thing to do, I think, would be able to narrow it through your actual subject matter first. So for whatever class you're in, maybe the one that you want to start with. So let's say it's education. So you'll see here again the academic search premier. The best one they're saying is EBSCO. So let's click on that. And when you click on it, you'll see you just click on the first one here. Okay. So one thing to think about when you're working in a database is think of it like tags, right, on social media. So what you'll do is you're trying to narrow it down. You don't need to put a big O sentence in here. So let's say that we want to learn about multi-sensory instruction, right? Because we're looking at that research-based strategy in the classroom. Multi-sensory instruction. And remember, you think of tags. So here you can do and or not. I always kind of keep it on and I'm going to put early childhood. So how would we use early childhood multisensory instruction? Then you can hit search. Okay, so you'll see here you have 141 results. One thing I did want to note, whenever you're using the database, it's very important for you always put full text, right? Because that's going to allow you to make sure you get the full text and not just a synopsis or abstract, which is giving you little pieces of it. Another thing to think about too is that to make sure that whenever you're doing it, you have to look at the dates, right? So you'll see this is from 1914 to 2022. If you're looking for most relevant information, you will have to change the date if you want it more current. Okay. You obviously can search too by the different types of source you want. ebooks, books, journals, those sorts of things. So these are things to keep in mind as well. Another thing to do too is there is a place on here where you can search where it's called peer review articles. And what that allows you is it peer reviewed means it's that people who have credibility inside of that specific source or research or that specific topic, they can talk on it because this is something that they know a lot about. So we've already had people in that field looking at um, those sources, right? So it's always important for you to think about picking, maybe the most current, looking at your dates, thinking of making full text available, and then also searching peer reviewed articles. That is another way. So you'll see here, if you pick one, so you see this one here, it says a multisensory tutoring program for students at risk of reading difficulties. You'll see here it says PDF full text. That's what you want to see, okay? Because that's going to give you the whole source and not just part of it. So that's a little short snippet of how you use the database. I encourage you, like I said, to get in there, do the module, take the library quiz, and play around on the database a little bit, okay? You can also always contact the librarian. She's embedded in our course. If you hit course tools and you hit class list, the librarian or the research coach is actually named Crystal Johnson. And if you scroll down inside of our course, on the right side where it says role on that column, you're going to see student, student, student. You'll see instructor, so that's your professors. And then you may even see someone called a research coach. These are your librarians. They're embedded in the class. You can actually send them an email anytime you'd like. So and they're always also um, the number to the library is on the library homepage and their email addresses. But this is a fast way to just email Crystal if you have any questions about research. She's very helpful. Okay, guys, so that covers chapter 9. Remember, I extended the due date. It's now due on Sunday. So that means that you have time to do that case study. You have time to do your chapter 9 quiz and then also work on the library module tour and quiz. All right, guys, as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. But until next time, guys, take care.